Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of How I wanted to talk today real quick about how I bought a car in Portugal. And so this is something that uh, would be useful information to me a year ago. But what I'm doing is, I'm learning and I'm giving feedback to you guys because maybe you'll be on the same path. Now, Portugal isn't the same as where I'm from in Canada when it comes to plates and ownership. And one of the most obvious facts that gives that away right away is the plates on the vehicle. The plates on the vehicle actually stay with the vehicle. A car salesman here put it like, the plates, they are born with the car and they are die with the car. So basically, they come from the factory without plates, obviously, but then the first person to register the vehicle and put plates on it, those plates stay with the vehicle forever. So you'll actually see indicators and numbers in the last two digits of the plates that show, usually it shows the model year. So in our case, I bought a 1998 Volkswagen Polo. But you'll come to Portugal and you'll rent vehicles. And to this point, to this day, here we are in March the 5th of 2024. I'm not ready to talk about the full experience that I had with renting cars here. But suffice it to say that there are some car rental places here that will totally soak you as a tourist and others that will be more reasonable. I do highly recommend Europe Car. They've been good to us in Germany and they've been good to us in Portugal. But even as good as Europe Car is, you get to a point where you're realizing, you know what, we're spending a lot of money in rentals. And if you add it up and you're an investor or somebody who cares about finance like I do, you start calculating the money that you've spent into rentals could be better spent in buying an affordable used car, which is exactly what we started doing. So aside from learning really quickly about the plates from a car salesman around the Algarve, we started shopping around for vehicles by looking online and by going to dealerships, looking at vehicles that we might be interested in with our own eyes. And one thing we realized, the pre-owned market and the gently used vehicles were out of our price range. We were looking at between 10 and 15,000 euros, and this was like the average price range that we were looking at. But in our mind, coming from Canada, we bought our Toyota Sienna for 3,000 Canadian dollars. We bought the Camry before that for a few $1,000s, and then drove them until we left Canada. So we drive the wheels off these used cars, and then we put the wheels back on and keep driving them. So our philosophy with vehicles, as in my family at least, on my side of the family, is own your stuff and drive it until the wheels fall off. So we wanted to have our own vehicle here in Portugal that would be more affordable. So again, after looking at what was around the area here, it was anywhere like something that we'd be looking at to buy would be between 10,000 and 15,000 euros. And we thought, well, that's a little bit rich. What is going on here in Portugal that the vehicles are that expensive? I understand that they have a different situation here where they'll actually, basically, the cars come in for a safety or a mechanical inspection every year. They're supposed to go to a mechanic, a licensed mechanic here, to go for a safety and inspection. So the process by which you'd get to the point where you're buying a car, either you would have it safetied or it would be about to be safetied, but it's a very different approach than say in Canada, where you can buy something as is and basically all the liability and all of the getting the safety, the mechanical approvals would be on the new owner. So I've sold vehicles as is, and it's just kind of like an understanding in Canada that you're buying it as is, so it's whatever it is. The muffler could be falling off, the engine might not work, but hey, you want to buy it? It's on you, buddy. Here, it's a little bit different. People are in no hurry to sell a car, and people are in no hurry here to take your money, which is very strange to a Canadian, because for example, we kind of settled on a Toyota Yaris that was used. I think it was a 2000. Tyler, if you're listening, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was a 2015, something like that. And it was 7,500 euros. And we were seriously thinking about getting it. And I was asking the guy, can you put it on payments? Keep in mind, my Toyotas in Canada, cost me less than $3,000, and we have the Tundra was a bit more expensive when we bought it, but my adopted dad bought that. It was 15,000 Canadian dollars for a 2007 Toyota Tundra. Regardless of what I have in Canada, we're talking about Portugal now. And basically, we were settling around 7,500. I was saying to the guy, so if I come in with the money right now, can I buy it? And he said, no, that's not how we do it here. So you would come in, you would tell me that you want to buy it, we would draft up the agreement, and then I would get it mechanically ready for you. It might take 2 to 3 days. It's not going to need a lot. And it's sitting right there on his property. Like in Canada, you just walk up to the dealership and you're like, here's the money, I want that car. And they'll give it to you. The rest is on you, Here, they're like, no. You're not going to just run away with the car. We're going to go over it. We're going to give it to you properly. And then we go with you, or we do the documents with you. So it was a whole long hoopla ordeal, which is different than I'm used to. And in the end, we decided as we drove away, the guy was really informative. Carlos was his name, but really informative. But at the end, we decided even 7,500 euros for a old Toyota Yaris with a couple 100,000 kilometers was a little rich. And even if they're being safetied every year, like my Sienna saw mechanics every year, my Toyota Camry saw, mechanics every year. So just seeing a mechanic every year and getting re-safetied every year in Portugal here doesn't necessarily mean that it's a great vehicle. But it does give a little bit more confidence to the buyer, like a mechanic saw it. And by the way, all mechanics here are not completely doing everything by the book, the same as in Canada, where in Canada you're like, I know a guy, he can he can put the paperwork on it, if I pay him. There's something similar to going on here, but it's basically the mechanics are talking amongst themselves and from my experience, and they can make things happen that you, as a retail buyer, you're not going to be able to make things happen. I know a lot of mechanics in Niagara. Some people would consider me a technician or a mechanic in Niagara. So that infrastructure of people that I know in Niagara, I don't have here. So whether it was Desiree or myself, I don't know, we had the idea to just start talking to mechanics. So we went to one mechanic, to another. We had recommendations. We went to a mechanic down the road at a gas station, and he was an Indian fellow, and we were saying like, hey, do you have any cars for sale? Any used cars? And it was, again, this attitude of like, nobody is in a hurry here. So we deal with that a lot here in Portugal so far. Like I was like, yeah, I'll take your phone number. I have a vehicle that I can sell you that you're looking for in your price range. And he never got back to us. So maybe he was on his own speed. I don't know. We actually drove our vehicle that we bought to him because he works near a gas station. And we were like, hey, look at the car. Yeah, we bought a car. We actually did want to buy a car. This is the car that we bought because you never got back to us. Which I thought was funny. But anyway, so we basically just went to a couple mechanics and we finally settled on somebody that was able to interact with us in a way that we thought was respectful, and he seemed to be serious. Sometimes you get dismissed as a foreigner. And we can, like, Desiree can speak a lot of she can speak Spanish, so she can speak some Portuguese. So we're there trying to communicate. They're kind of broken English. And so in the end, we kind of settled on English. But some people are friendly. I would say most people here are friendly, but it doesn't negate the fact that buying a car here is different than you're used to, and it's kind of complicated. But we figured the best place to start would be at a mechanic who can sell a used car, because we're not looking to spend 15,000 euros. We just want a used vehicle that we could drive until it falls apart and then maybe fix it and then keep it going if we want to. Basically like a starter vehicle in Portugal. So we wound up meeting this mechanic, and he had a few different vehicles, like a Honda Civic hatchback and the Volkswagen that we wound up buying. Off the off the top of his head of like vehicles that he is familiar with, that he's worked on, that he knows the owners, and the owners want to sell them. So again, it wasn't just a simple thing of like, I'm going to give you the money and then you're going to give me the vehicle. We tried many times. I was just like, here's the money. It was 1,500 euros. I was like, here, I just want to give you the money. And he's like, no. You're going to see the car first. You're going to do things our way, basically. So we saw the car, we met the owner in a neutral spot, or the person who was driving the car, maybe not the owner, but we saw the vehicle. I had already agreed to buy it at that point, so I thought I was indifferent about looking at it. We noticed a couple things, like the back seats don't come down. We noticed a couple things that were kind of weird, but I was like, it's $1,500. Look at the wheels, there's no rust on it. They don't have corrosive road salt dumped on the ground here like I'm used to in Niagara, so there's virtually no rust. And if something does have rust, then they, during the yearly inspection, will pull it off the road. So after I looked at it, and we all were like, oh, I mean, what do you want us to say? It's 1,500 euros, you know? So we were like, yes, we'll buy it. Then it went back to the mechanic, and he did his final inspection, and then the mechanic himself, which is why we wanted to deal with this mechanic, he started the process of doing the paperwork with the local comunidad, with the local registration, with the local city hall, basically. And then he started the process on his end of selling it and making sure it's able to be sold. And then when he said, okay, it's ready to be picked up, he was like, I'm going to keep it at the shop, and then you and the seller are going to meet at the registration near City Hall, where this type of these exchanges happen, where, you know, properties and land and vehicles are exchanged. So this is something that's completely different to anything I'm used to in Niagara. Basically, the buyer and the seller, before any money is exchanged, will now meet at the place where the documents are signed and sold in Portugal. And you know, she has her side of the paperwork of the ownership, and you have, you know, your documents ready, and you go and meet with the local government, and they just, you know, transcribe everything over, and then after that's done, then you can exchange the money. In our case, we paid cash, so we just kind of found a quiet spot, and then we paid the money, and then now the vehicle paperwork is in your name, and they will mail you the actual official documents to whatever address you give, which our documents came in to our lawyer's office the other day. But as far as the seller and the buyer goes, the transaction is done, and then from there we went to the mechanics and picked up the vehicle, and he basically wished us well. And, you know, being from Canada, we're like, do we tip? Do we not tip? I wanted to tip, and I was trying to tip, and then he said no. And I say, I'm going to buy a Helix from you later. So, and he's like, oh, I'm going to work on that. You just give me an espresso, this type of thing. So very different experience. As far as insurance goes, insurance here is super affordable. It reminds me of when I lived in Saskatchewan with SGI insurance. There's like a uniform insurance that is not going to be like any higher or any lower for virtually anyone. I know that is not the case here, but you can probably over-insure yourself or under-insure yourself, but here there's like a bare minimum insurance. In our case for this vehicle, it was like $300 a year. So obviously we bought the insurance for the whole year, and I don't particularly feel, I've owned a lot of vehicles in my life, I don't particularly feel any ego attachment to making sure that the vehicle is in my name. So with this particular vehicle, we actually put everything in Desiree's name, and I'm proud of her to have her own vehicle and have her own insurance. And as a man who believes in women and wants to empower women, I think that's important. If you have a girlfriend or a wife who's never owned a car, this is not Desiree's case, but if you have a girlfriend or a wife who's never owned a car and it's nothing to you to put it into her name, then put it into her name. So what's the difference? We're going to drive it, we're a couple, so we have insurance that covers both of us, and it doesn't matter whether she drives it or I drive it. And that's how we actually got this vehicle and how I went about buying this Volkswagen Polo. So it's a 1998, get this, 1998 Volkswagen Polo with 130,000 kilometers on it, single owner previous to us, and it was like a old lady who either never drove it or wasn't in Portugal a lot, or she was here on vacation or something. I don't know. But basically, so we had to wrap up. We had the assistance of a local mechanic to kind of guide us through the process. Although I had looked a lot of it up online, I was talking to car salesmen, used car salesmen, and mechanics. So I was getting the education from the ground level with the guys with the wrenches in their hands who actually know what they're talking about, because sometimes in Portugal, the local laws will change, or sometimes there's different tax laws or different, just different bureaucratic things are happening. So even the mechanics sometimes are not up to date on the exact laws. So it's something that is like a constant learning process for everyone of like, oh, what is the current law here? I mean, it can be similar in Canada, by the way. So as far as our driver's license goes, Canada and Portugal have an agreement where if you know how to drive in Canada and you have a valid driver's license, Portugal offers a no questions asked carryover. So we don't have to go hand in our driver's license. We don't have to go hand it to anybody, although we've offered, but it's not necessary right now. Basically, when our driver's license expires in Canada, then we should switch it over and renew it here. So that covers how I got the insurance, that covers how we actually bought the vehicle, and that covers the driver's license. So I think that's about the whole kit and caboodle of how we wound up buying our own vehicle in Portugal. So follow me on Twitter or X at adamjosh.com if you have any more questions. Thanks for following and watching another episode of How I. Take care.